Manchester United 1, Chelsea 1. We are here for the post-match review. I'm joined by Tom Cooney. We watched the game there. Give me your just overall thoughts on what we saw from Manchester United in terms of a performance. Was it better than this season? Was it about what we've seen already? Or was there, some sort of optimistic signs of optimism there?
Yeah, it's going to be a difficult period this couple of weeks because, it's natural to want to draw conclusions from everything, but the players were fighting, they worked hard. I don't think there's a lot of comments being quite negative about the performance. I know it's not exactly where we want to be, home game, even if it's Chelsea, you want to be taking the game to them and ultimately come away with the result. But I didn't think it was that bad. I thought we were okay in periods. I'm a little bit disappointed because I felt we were a bit wasteful, but that's not really a criticism of the performance. As I said at the end of the main show, I thought maybe we could have managed that time a little bit better after we scored because it's just so precious, a 1-0 lead in a game like that. So, credit to the strike. It was a fantastic effort. But after going ahead, you're a little bit disappointed. But overall, it's okay. A draw today is okay. And
it's not a bad result, is it? They're a team that's doing better than us this season, that is scoring goals, that everyone's talking about, that they've turned a corner and they're pushing for top 4. And I don't think they outclassed us in any way. I think the stats would back that up. The possession was relatively level. They had 54% to our 46, so, relatively close, or I would say very close. Total shots, again, almost the exact same. 11 to their 12. We had 4 on target. They only had 3. United had 4 big chances. They only had 1. I think that's the difference when we talk about United should and could have won it. That's the difference for me, the big chances there. Yeah. We saw Garnacho with that one where the ball gets cut back to him sort of 10, 12 yards out and he just rushes a complete meal of it. Yeah, his foot sort of gets there too early and by the time he's hit it, he's kind of bouncing it into the floor with no pace on it. There was other chances as well in the first half. Rashford had that sort of side foot at the back post. There was moments as well that never quite turned into things even that should have done.
Like high and wide volley. I mean, I know for a player of his quality, the ball falls to him just inside the box. It sits up lovely. Can you find a shot on target? Because from there it'll fly in.
Exactly. And if you look at the expected goals, I know again not everyone's a fan of expected goals, but United had 1.96, so probably should have got a couple of goals in that game. Is basically what that's telling us. I think just from watching the game we could have told ourselves that. Let's look at the goal then. Hojlund wins the penalty. There's a lovely ball over the top from Casemiro. Not the best first touch from Hojlund, but in the end, kind of worked out for him because it took him into the path of Sanchez, who, no question about the foul, was there, even though Sanchez sort of argued it. What did you make of Hojlund today, before we get to the Bruno tucking the ball in? His performance, I felt he spent, like he often does, he spent the whole game fighting the centre-back rather than actually being able to do anything.
But you know what? I hope there's going to be a bit of an upturn for him with the new manager because it's clear as day we don't utilise him enough.
No.
And it must be frustrating, but I admire how he keeps going because I actually don't think it was... I thought it was a difficult ball to take in, to kill it because you're trying to bring it down out of the air on the half turn, to not have it run away for you, keep it close enough to your body so that you're the one that gets that second touch on the ball rather than the keeper coming and smothering it. So I actually thought he did quite well to win the penalty. And that's after what minute? I don't know what minute was it. That's after at least an hour,
70th minute,
over an hour of not a lot, but he keeps going, and I think it's admirable that even if he's only getting one moment in a game and it's coming at that time in the game, he stays switched on. He doesn't get too frustrated, I don't think, but we certainly need to utilise him more, and that's because right now it's a waste of a player.
It is, and we're looking at some of his numbers today. We made 11 passes, which isn't very many at all, obviously. 30 touches, won a few duels as well, 7 duels, won 9 lost. But the crucial thing for me, once again, 0 shots. That's my worry. Madness. That's my worry with him. We've got a striker who is getting 0 shots per game.
But where are they going to come from? Because I don't actually look. I couldn't pick any opportunities where he didn't take the shot or he didn't get in a position.
Well, I think for me the worry with him isn't that. And we can talk about him finding space, but if your wingers and your players get the ball into good areas in the box or try and get the ball to you, I think he would get more shots. I don't think they do it, and that moves us. We still haven't got to the penalty, but Bruno tucked it in nicely. Sort of classic Bruno Fernandes, really, wasn't it? That moves us on nicely, I think, to Garnacho, who was a big talking point throughout the whole game, because again tonight, it was just a frustrating case of him being wasteful. He had 4 shots total, but that sort of only tells half the story. We mentioned that one, that relatively kind of easy shot that, I'm not saying he should have scored, but he should have tested the keeper with it. Definitely, he got to make the keeper make a save, and instead it was gently back to his arms. There was one time in particular in the sort of, I don't remember the exact minute, around the 80th minute, where he's got the ball on the edge of the 18-yard box. We've kind of got a mini break where we've won the ball back. Mazraoui's overlapping over his left shoulder into clear space in the 18-yard box.
Players in the box for a change.
Yeah, there is. For Mazraoui to square the ball to, and instead of laying that ball off, and it was an easy, obvious ball, he tries to go inside himself and force a shot. And we never quite saw the whole picture afterwards, but I'm pretty sure Casemiro absolutely bollocked him for it, didn't he? Casemiro was screaming at someone anyway. It's just, someone mentioned in the super chat on the watch along that it's like he's modelling his game so strictly on Ronaldo that he thinks that every time he gets the ball he has to shoot, he has to sort of Ronaldo it. What do you see in sort of Garnacho at the minute? What's going wrong for him? Why is it not working? What can he do differently?
So I think today maybe it's been highlighted more because it was quite a close game, and there is that frustration that if Garnacho had just not been so wasteful, that might have been the difference. Whereas in some, it's probably been forgiven a lot more in games where everyone's been poor, or we've been all around. It's been accepted that he had a really difficult evening. Yeah. Whereas today I feel like it's kind of everything that's the worst of Garnacho, the criticism that he does get in spite of us, having a lot of promise for him, was laid bare today.
Yeah, it was.
And it's at that point now where even though he's young, 20 years old, he's played a lot of first team football, and I think with he needs to be reined in, right? Because I don't know what the directive was for him under Ten Hag, because this isn't new. Seeing him being wasteful like that,
no.
Seeing him just it's we know he's going to shoot when it's not the best option. Ten Hag never really managed to get a hold of that and manage him a little bit better. I wonder if he would do better in a bit more of a system. I mentioned in the thing, where it's always about moments with him. And when you're playing on the edge where you're fighting for little moments and the team's not controlling a game of football, I don't think he emotionally manages that well at all. Whereas I think if we had a bit more sustained pressure, a bit more of a plan in terms of what you should do when you get the ball, the ball, a little bit akin to Manchester City, perhaps. I know you say, people criticise that can coach, the magic out of players like a Jack Grealish or something, or a Garnacho, but he needs to be reined in a bit because his decision-making right now is not benefiting the team. No,
I completely agree. And I do think that there's obviously a difference, isn't there? One, there's a difference between taking the creativity out of a player by over-coaching them and turning them into someone who's scared to take risks. But there's a difference between that and someone who is, like you said, hindering the opportunities of the team because they're being quite frankly greedy.
You're always going to get games like that where you have less chances, and it's so important to use the chances you do get. Yeah, it is. And I think, and again, I'm going to repeat something I've said already, but I think it's a shame for Garnacho and his development that we don't have someone better, more mature and older than him playing ahead of him, because he would be a fantastic first guy off the bench for either Rashford or whoever this other person is. I don't know, Heung-min Son or someone, for instance. That was meant to be Anthony, wasn't it? Yeah, well, that was potentially the plan, or he was meant to be Sancho, and then it was meant to be Anthony, and then before that, whoever knows. But if we had someone who's 27, 28 playing week in, week out, you could bring Garnacho on, and his traits and qualities are phenomenal off the bench, and in a lot of games work well from the start as well. But the fact that he's by far, maybe not by far our best option, but I think that we've got 3 wingers basically who can feasibly start for us week in, week out. That's not enough, first of all, anyway. And only Rashford has ever got 15 goals, let alone 25, 30 goals in a season. And Rashford's not quite at it either. So it's always going to be an issue, but I do think it's that thing of just look up a bit more. Just, you have to grow and develop and mature a little bit, but he does need to mature a little bit, because at the moment you look like you're watching a kid playing, and he is a kid, and he's a very talented one, but at some point, if you are starting week in, week out, like you said, maybe the manager needs to say to him, you need to pass a little bit. You're doing too much at the moment, and it's costing the team. We've got a few super chats. Parag says, all things considered, that was a decent performance. Yeah, I want to get to that. And result, Garnacho might benefit from being benched for a game or two.
maybe it's a bench. Maybe, like you said, it's just a word in the ear. Or, in training we're going to go through this. What do you do when you're here? What do you do when you're there? And if you think there's an opportunity, like the one where he sort of hit across it and it spun up and away, that one, there were people in the box. I think that was a good time to shoot. I think he got that right, even though it didn't hit the target. But there was a left-footed one in particular where he's running and he's hitting it first time, I think it was even.
You've got to be able to weigh up the probability of that going in the moment.
And realise it's very, very low. But Parag, I think that's a good point. It wasn't a bad performance today. And I think it was two evenly matched sides. And actually, I would say on the balance of things, if anyone edged it, it was probably just about us in terms of the chances. But I think they're a team that people have been talking about, like I said before. They're back. They've got these very good players. They've got Palmer. They're there. Maybe they can challenge for top four. United are a side that's just set their manager a week ago. And it was an even game. And I'm relatively sort of buoyed by that, especially when you look at some of the performances from the teams that are above us. I think, it wasn't a bad performance today at all. And either team could have won, but we certainly weren't outclassed by Chelsea at all. Let me get some super chats and then get your thoughts as well. Ferdous Mohammed says Garnacho isn't ready to be a regular starter. Ant L says, did Zirkzee win a competition to play for us? Just a bit on Zirkzee, obviously a little bit harsh there, but that's his opinion. He had a little cameo, and again we saw some of those kind of, I don't want to say issues, but I'll say issues, looking a bit sluggish. He seems to be sort of chasing everything. Defenders coming from behind him to get in front of him when he's waiting for the ball to arrive at his feet. What needs to happen there? Because there is definitely a gap in just everything at the minute with Zirkzee, isn't there?
Well, it's definitely an issue, him being a straight swap for Hojlund.
Yeah.
And trying to occupy that place in the team. We've been, I say the way we use Hojlund with the way we don't use Hojlund. I thought he did okay for the one where he was put through, because it was his pace was highlighted in that moment. He just didn't have the pace to get away, but he didn't panic. He kept hold of the ball. He kept the move alive. He does look like he's struggling a bit. I mean, you've seen him midweek. He looked a bit. You felt that was an occasion where can he get a goal? Everyone was chipping in. There was chances, and it was a frustrating evening for him that he didn't manage to get on the score sheet. I think he needs a bit of luck. He needs something to go for him, and I'm just not convinced in how we're using him right now. It was talked about him being somewhere in between a 9 and a 10, wasn't it? And it's tricky with some of the profiles we've got in this team and how we weave them together.
Yeah. And also, if we're honest with ourselves, that isn't a position. Do you know
no,
what I mean?
And it's certainly not. It's if he can't play number 9, then he's not needed as a 10.
No, I know, and that's the thing that I think 9.5 ain't a position. So
it's Firmino, isn't it?
Yeah, it is Firmino, but
it's high wingers that are scoring the bulk of your goals, that you drop into spaces, and I can
see why you'd bring him in, because a player like Zirkzee could help get the best out of Garnacho and Rashford as your two wingers.
Because of the chronic underuse of Hojlund through the middle.
Yeah, so you might as well let the striker help the wingers, because they're going to shoot anyway. But at the minute, his hold-up play he just looks like he's lacking confidence, doesn't he? And he's doing things that you or I would be embarrassed about at the minute, in terms of taking a touch and then sort of jogging toward the ball when everyone around him sprinting. He's going to get used to it. I hope he'll get used to it. And some of the things that we're seeing at the minute are like sort of brain issues rather than physical issues. And I don't mean he's got something wrong with his brain. I just mean he has to sort of rejig how he thinks about things and the way he does things, which I think he can do. I don't think it's a talent issue. I think it's getting used to everything that's going on around him. Someone in the comments mentioned Von Maxwell says, what's impressive about Garnacho? I'm not seeing this future Ronaldo hype. Every week the fan base gasses him like he's the best winger in the team, but he's below average at everything. Maybe my eyes are lying to me, but this ain't it. I think anyone who says he's going to be the next Ronaldo is not. That's, no one is going to be Ronaldo. Maybe someone in a generation's time will come along and do some of the things Ronaldo's done. Ronaldo's literally the greatest goal scorer in the history of football, and it's a sport that's been going for, we're pushing 200 years at this point. So that isn't happening. Let's forget that. But can he be a good, functional winger for Man United? I think the potential for that is there. And if you look at what he is good at in terms of his numbers, he takes the ball into the penalty box fantastically. He carries the ball forward very well. He's someone that takes risks and goes past his man as often as he possibly can. His dribbling numbers are very good. The problem that he does have is, and I spoke about this before the season started, and this was my worry when we always field this front three of Rashford, Hojlund and Garnacho, his passing stats just aren't good enough. You look at his passes attempted, they're in the bottom 18% for wingers. You look at his through balls, which again, trying to get the striker on the ball while we've got momentum, he's in the bottom 13% again. His crosses, bottom 30.
Are they better when he plays on the right?
I don't have it broken down by position, so possibly. But just generally, his passes completed, his progressive passes, put him in the bottom 5% of wingers and attacking midfielders in the top 5 leagues. So it's a big sample size that you're comparing him to there. He just doesn't get the ball to his attacker enough. And again, just his assists, just the raw numbers that we can all see, are in the bottom 33%, so the bottom third of wingers. That is the issue, isn't it? He doesn't create for others. And at some point, if you're going to be a winger that isn't Cristiano Ronaldo, you have to start creating for other people.
I still think he's at that stage, though, where it's okay that he's come on the scene as a raw young talent, did very well at the academy.
Yeah.
He's broken into the first team at a really young age at a difficult time for the club.
Definitely.
And been quite a bright light in a bit of a dark couple of years. And I think it's okay where he's at. I think he's in that moment where he may need to rejig things and his form can fall off. I don't think he's at that, it's not a decisive moment for him.
Absolutely not.
At all.
I think this is a time for him to learn a little bit and keep pushing on. I'm not worried about him and his future at United. Certainly, getting a lot of games for us in one shape or another. Whether he'll be a 25 goal a season winger, we'll have to wait and see. But I don't think it's he's done or anything like that.
He played a crazy amount of games last season.
He did. He's played 100 games for us
20-year-old lad.
Yeah, he did. I completely agree. Rune says, if I was Wheatley or Chido Obi Martin, I'd wonder how I'm not starting over Zirkzee. He's so slow. Worse first touch than Lukaku. This isn't fast. Waste of 40 million. I wouldn't jump to waste of 40 million when we're 10 league games into the season. He's not been good enough yet, I will say that. Parag says the ref was horrendous. Just talk about the ref quickly. It was one of those weird games where I don't think it wasn't like massive decisions wrong, huge glaring error on the penalty, or he sent someone off wrong. I don't think he got any big decisions wrong, but it just felt like he couldn't quite get to grips with the fact that Chelsea were being really physical.
Yeah.
And he sort of fell for things occasionally, and he'd give stuff that wasn't and then let stuff go that was. He just had a bit of an odd one, didn't he?
I thought maybe we were a little bit too honest with a couple of the things that we did, in comparison to Chelsea being quite the opposite. And, they managed to buy quite a few fouls that probably weren't as clear-cut as some of the ones that we didn't get. And it's hard to say they have a massive impact on a game, but it just breaks things up and it can be a bit frustrating. You just like to see, obviously, the ref be consistent for both sides. But I guess the main thing is that we had a penalty there. I don't think it would have been an issue if he didn't give it. I'd like to think it wouldn't have been an issue. It would have gone to VAR, but I'm glad he gave it on the pitch.
Yeah, me too.
And it gave us a platform to potentially win the game, so he got the big decision right.
Yeah, it did. This is my Roderick with a super chat. Obviously joking at half-time. Yeah, we could see that, talking about getting rid of Van Nistelrooy because we weren't 8-0 up. Rudy's to steady the ship. We need this. Not a bad result. Also, that goal by Caicedo was brilliant. It was. And, drawing a game to that goal isn't a shame, really. Classic Noah says anyone in our midfield could have been man of the match. Very hard working. On Garnacho, he has the most goals of our front three. His decision making needs work. It does need work, and he has been productive this season at the same time. Two things can be true. That's why we're not ruling him out or saying that he's a terrible player. He just needs to work on his decision making so he can help the teams in the big games when it's not popping a few goals.
We're relying very heavily on a young player.
Yeah,
and exactly. That's not an ideal situation.
It's not at all. Ant L says, who sponsors Zirkzee's boots? The Cray twins? I'm not sure, actually. Who's got someone nice, I'm sure. Right, that'll be all from us. Thank you, Tom.
Sounds
Lovely
good.
to have you on again. I'm sure we'll get you on the watch long very, very soon. Thank you, Owen, for joining us. You know what? I'm going to say, that wasn't a bad result, that. A draw at home to Chelsea, that isn't bad. I'm not going to be upset with that.
I think what would have been disappointing, I was anticipating after that West Ham game with Ten Hag still in, at the helm, what a disappointing result looks like in a week's time, and it was getting beat at home.
Exactly, comfortably.
Whereas for that, today to come away with a little bit of disappointment, that's back to where we should be.
That's a good
at
point.
least.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for joining us. Hit subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. We'll hopefully get Stephen Howson's review on the channel in a little bit of time as well, so stick around for that. We'll be back as well, of course, tomorrow with the news with Jay and the podcast later on. Thank you for joining us. We'll see you in a bit.